Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. In today's video, we'll be diving deep into a significant and ongoing debate in global diplomacy. We're talking about South Africa's increasingly complex relationship with the United States. With tensions mounting between Pretoria and Washington, many are questioning whether South Africa is strategically asserting its independence or if it's setting itself up for dangerous isolation. Let's break down what's going on, and what this all means for the future of South Africa on the global stage. The diplomatic gamble. In recent months, South Africa's foreign policy has come under the spotlight. The country has been increasingly at odds with the United States, leading to a wide range of debates on African news and beyond. While some analysts argue that South Africa is making bold moves to carve out an independent position on the world stage, others suggest that it's taking a risky gamble that could hurt its international standing and economic stability. The question remains, is South Africa asserting itself as a strong, independent power, or is it moving too far away from traditional allies in a world that is becoming more polarized? South Africa's mixed response to U.S. pressure. Political risk analyst Mensien Lover recently weighed in on this debate. According to him, South Africa's approach to U.S. pressure has been mixed, partly strategic, but also reactive. He pointed out that Pretoria has underestimated the shifts in Washington's foreign policy, especially under the leadership of President Donald Trump. This misstep, he argues, has led to diplomatic blunders on South Africa's part, though things may be changing. Mensien highlighted that South Africa is recalibrating its approach. Through back-channel diplomacy, engaging the private sector, and carefully managing public messaging, South Africa is trying to safeguard its economic interests. And there's a lot at stake. Over 600 U.S. companies operate in South Africa, making Washington a key trade and financial partner for the country. In light of this, Ndlovu suggests that South Africa should adopt a more measured and tactful approach rather than directly confronting the U.S. He also points to some external narratives around South Africa's land reform policies and Black economic empowerment (BEE) initiatives, which are often distorted and misrepresented in international media. Geopolitical power struggles, South Africa in the crossfire. Political analyst Sanusha Naidu sees the diplomatic tension between South Africa and the U.S. as part of a larger global power struggle. She argues that Washington may be using South Africa as an example of what happens when a developing nation pushes back against Western influence. Naidu highlights South Africa's increasing ties with countries like China and Russia, and its growing role in global institutions such as BRICS and the G20. These growing alliances have put Pretoria at odds with Washington's interests, and tensions have been rising ever since. She also pointed out how uncomfortable the U.S. seems to be with South Africa's global positioning, especially when it comes to issues of sustainability, equality, and economic reform. For example, when South Africa's G20 presidency focused on these themes, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken didn't hold back in his criticism, reflecting the growing unease in Washington about Pretoria's stance on the international stage. Naidu also emphasized the uneven nature of the international system and pointed out the parallels between South Africa's post-apartheid policies and the U.S.'s own ongoing racial and social justice struggles. This, she argues, shows the hypocrisy in Western criticisms of South Africa's policies, particularly on issues like land reform. But beyond these ideological differences, Naidu is also critical of South Africa's internal politics. She described the partnership between the African National Congress, ANC, and the Democratic Alliance, DA, as uneasy, suggesting that the government may face difficulties implementing the transformative policies needed to address systemic inequality. South Africa's diplomatic restraint. Despite the rising tensions, not everyone agrees that South Africa's response to the U.S. is a sign of weakness. Dr. Pholonie Mthembu, Executive Director of the Institute for Global Dialogue, views Pretoria's diplomatic restraint as an intentional strategy, not an indication of vulnerability. Mthembu argues that unlike the US, which has been outspoken in its criticisms, South Africa has avoided escalating tensions, instead focusing on maintaining economic stability and positioning itself strategically for long-term growth. He draws a historical parallel to the leadership of Nelson Mandela, who had to navigate a delicate relationship with the US after apartheid ended. Mandela prioritized South Africa's national interests over yielding to external pressures, and Themba believes that this continues to guide Pretoria's foreign policy today. Furthermore, Themba dismissed the claims made by Elon Musk regarding white genocide in South Africa as deliberate disinformation. He stated that such sensationalist narratives are designed to divide the country and distract from its commitment to national reconciliation and unity. He emphasized that South Africa's constitutional values should be the focus, rather than false stories and exaggerations that seek to undermine the country's progress. What's next for South Africa? Looking ahead, South Africa finds itself at a crossroads. Some see its foreign policy as a bold reassertion of African agency, a way for the country to reclaim its sovereignty and global influence in a rapidly changing world order. But others warn that this strategy could isolate South Africa from traditional allies and partners, potentially leading to long-term economic and geopolitical consequences. The ongoing tensions with the US are not just about policy disagreements, they're part of a larger global power shift. As the world becomes more divided along ideological and geopolitical lines, nations like South Africa are increasingly caught in the middle. The question is whether Pretoria can manage to balance its relationships with both the West and rising powers like China and Russia without risking irreparable harm to its international standing. So, what lies ahead for South Africa's diplomatic strategy? Is the country carving out an independent role for itself, or is it in danger of becoming isolated in an increasingly fragmented world? Only time will tell, but for now, the stakes couldn't be higher. Conclusion. As we've seen, South Africa's current diplomatic path is a delicate balance between asserting its independence and protecting its economic interests. Whether this gamble pays off or results in unintended consequences will depend on how skillfully Pretoria navigates the shifting global landscape. One thing is clear, South Africa is at a defining moment in its foreign policy, and the next steps will have far-reaching implications for both the country and the broader world. What do you think about South Africa's diplomatic strategy? Do you believe the country is making the right move, or is it taking a risky gamble that could backfire? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into South Africa's foreign policy, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more content like this. See you next time.